Welcome to the Smart Weight Loss Coaching Podcast. I'm Dr. Lisa Oldson, a board-certified weight loss medicine specialist and certified life coach. In this podcast, I'll share fresh insights and effective techniques for incorporating mindset, habit change, and proven science into your life. Are you ready to achieve sustainable weight loss, wellness, and longevity? Then let's jump in and lose weight the smart way. Welcome back. I was traveling with my husband last week, and our hotel offered coffee to go, which I love to have with my morning walk. My problem? I forgot my stainless steel reusable coffee cup, which I always bring from home when I travel. What I'm going to share with you today might make you rethink your coffee cup and maybe even your soup can, your lunch container, and possibly even your shampoo. We're talking about microplastics and the hormone-disrupting chemicals that travel with them. And why, if you've been working hard to lose weight and struggling to understand why your body seems to be fighting you, this might be a piece of the puzzle you haven't considered. Let me start with a finding that might give you pause. It certainly did for me. Researchers analyzed brain tissue from autopsies collected in 2016 and again in 2024, just 8 years apart. What they found, published in Nature Medicine in 2025, was that microplastic concentrations in the human brain had increased by roughly 50% in that time. And here's the part that really got me. Brain tissue had higher concentrations of these particles than either the liver or the kidneys. The brain appears to be accumulating microplastics at a disproportionate rate. And the predominant polymer is something called polyethylene, the same plastic in your sandwich bags, your shopping bags, and your water bottles. A separate study cited in JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, found that brain tissue from individuals with dementia contained microplastic levels roughly 6 times higher than those without dementia. Now, correlation is not causation, and I want to be thoughtful about that. This isn't proof that microplastics cause dementia, but these findings are serious enough that researchers are calling this a public health signal that we cannot ignore. And we're not just talking about brains. Microplastics have been detected in human blood, lungs, stool, placenta, breast milk, and perhaps most alarmingly to those of you looking to live longer, healthier, in the plaques inside our arteries. More on that in a moment. The exposure routes are what you might expect. We ingest plastic particles through food and drink. We inhale them from indoor air. We absorb some through skin contact. One analysis found that people who drink exclusively bottled water may ingest roughly 90,000 additional microplastic particles per year compared to those drinking filtered tap water. Indoor air is actually one of the dominant exposure sources, something I never really thought about until I read it in the medical literature. I'd like to share one landmark study with you because I think it illustrates just how high the stakes are here. In 2024, researchers published a prospective study in the New England Journal of Medicine, which, for those who don't know, is the most prestigious medical journal in the world. They analyzed plaque in the arteries from 257 patients who had significant carotid artery disease. Plaques are the kind of blood vessel blockage that raises the risk of having a stroke. What they found was that polyethylene, a microplastic, was detectable in nearly 60% of those plaque samples. 12% also contained polyvinyl chloride, which we know as PVC. And here's the shocking thing. The patients whose plaques contained microplastics, they had a 4.5 times higher risk of having a heart attack, a stroke, or dying from any cause over the following 34 months compared to those whose plaque did not contain microplastics. 4.5 times. That's not a small signal. And when they looked at those plaques under the microscope, the ones with the microplastics showed more inflammation, more immune cell infiltration, and less structural collagen, meaning the plaque was less stable and more likely to rupture. Ruptured plaques are what cause heart attacks as well as strokes. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in this country, and microplastics are a contributing factor. Now, this is one study and it's observational. We can't say microplastics cause the cardiovascular events, but it adds to a growing body of evidence that these particles don't just sit passively in our bodies. They interact with our tissues in ways that promote inflammation. And chronic inflammation, as we talk about often on this podcast, sits at the root of so many of the chronic diseases we're trying to prevent, including obesity. Let's talk about the chemicals that travel with plastics, because in some ways, these may be even more impactful than the particles themselves. Microplastics are not inert. They carry chemical additives, plasticizers, stabilizers, colorants, and they can also absorb environmental toxins as they travel through water and soil. When microplastics end up in your body, those chemicals come along for the ride. There are two types of plastics I want to focus on today, BPA and phthalates. BPA mimics estrogen. It literally binds to estrogen receptors in your body. And here's the tricky part. Depending on the dose and concentration, BPA can act as an estrogen agonist at some levels and more like an antagonist at others. So it can enhance or amplify the estrogen impact when it acts like an agonist, and it blocks the estrogen impact when it acts like an antagonist. Either has the potential for harm. And BPA appears to accelerate ovarian aging, which has implications not just for fertility, but for the metabolic shifts that happen as estrogen changes throughout a woman's life. BPA also disrupts androgen receptors and blocks testosterone. Research has shown that teenage boys with the highest BPA levels in their bodies have the lowest testosterone levels. All right, let's switch gears and talk about some of the places where we find BPA. The lining inside canned foods is one of the biggest sources. Soup cans, bean cans. Unfortunately for me, tomato cans, which I always use when I make chili, and even soda cans. The coating on the inside of your to-go coffee cup is another source of BPA, which is why I was struggling at my hotel in California when they offered me a paper cup to go. How about thermal paper receipts? This one surprises people. The coating on store receipts, ATM receipts, and some parking tickets contains BPA, and it absorbs through your skin really efficiently. Handling receipts and then eating without washing your hands is a meaningful exposure route for BPA. Let's also talk about phthalates. These are the plasticizers that make plastics soft and flexible. And in my view, they're the most concerning of the bunch. They're in the pipes carrying your drinking water. They're in the plastic wrapping around fast food. They're in hair products, cosmetics, lotions, and fragrances. And because phthalates are lipophilic, meaning they're attracted to fat, they accumulate in fatty foods. Meats and cheeses in prolonged contact with plastic wrap tend to have higher phthalate content, for example. Like BPA, phthalates disrupt testosterone. Studies consistently show that individuals with the highest phthalate levels have the lowest testosterone levels. For men, this may result in impaired sperm count, quality, and motility, and an increased risk for infertility. The rates of these conditions are rising, and researchers believe environmental plastic exposure is a meaningful contributor to male infertility. Now, before I tell you what we can all do to reduce our exposure to microplastics, let me briefly bring this back to weight. Endocrine-disrupting chemicals like BPA and phthalates fall into a category that researchers call obesogens. That word is exactly what it sounds like, chemicals that promote obesity. One study tested chemical extracts from 34 everyday plastic consumer products. A third of those extracts cause fat cells to multiply and grow larger. And in animal studies, microplastic exposed mice had more obesity and were more metabolically impaired than controls. When researchers transplanted gut bacteria from microplastic exposed mice into healthy mice, the recipient mice developed obesity. This is a striking finding about the gut's role in this process. A 2024 systematic review and meta-analysis found that BPA exposure was significantly associated with higher rates of overweight, obesity, and increased waist size in adults. These aren't tiny effect sizes. The odds of obesity are 50% higher in individuals with elevated BPA exposure. Obviously, this matters enormously for anyone who's worked hard to lose weight and struggled to understand why their body seems to resist their efforts. Calories in versus calories out is definitely not the whole story. The nutritional, hormonal, and metabolic environment your body is operating in matters. And when that environment is being disrupted by chemical exposures you may not even be aware of, it can feel like you're fighting an uphill battle. Beyond fat cell formation, microplastics disrupt the gut microbiome, reduce beneficial bacteria, increase gut permeability or leakiness, which is a bad thing, and increase inflammation throughout the entire body. Now, before we go on to talk about what you can do to reduce your risk of health problems or weight gain from plastic exposure, let's take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsor. Just kidding. It's still me, Dr. Lisa Oldson, physician and founder of Smart Weight Loss Coaching. If you're as focused on your health as you are on the scale, you're my person. In my online program, we'll show you how to transform the way you approach weight loss so it takes up less brain space and frees up your time for the things you love to do. If you'd like to learn more about our women's or our men's program for weight loss, better health, and longevity, head over to smartweightlosscoaching.com. Join us to see how different a smart weight loss program can be. And we're back. Okay, I know that was probably a lot. It sometimes feels that way to me too, but I don't want you walking away feeling helpless or afraid of every item in your kitchen. That's not useful. What I do want is for you to be an informed person who makes great choices where it's easy and practical to do so. We're looking for reduction in our plastic exposure, not perfection. With that in mind, here are 5 concrete, evidence-informed steps you can take. Number 1, ditch canned foods where you can. The lining inside soup cans, bean cans, tomato cans, and soda cans is one of the most significant BPA exposure sources in the American diet. Switch to dried beans or glass jars when possible. Number 2, stop putting hot foods and beverages in plastic. Heat accelerates the leaching of chemicals from plastic into your foods and drinks. That to-go coffee cup with the plastic lid I was given on vacation? Well, I took off the lid, but used the coffee cup this time. But I usually remember to bring my own stainless steel glass or ceramic containers for hot items, and I'll definitely remember it next time I go on vacation. Number 3, for drinking water, tap filter through a quality carbon filter is actually a better choice than bottled water from a microplastic standpoint. Find a stainless steel, glass, or ceramic container for your water and make that your default, whether you're at home, at work, running errands, or on vacation. Number 4, look over your personal care products. Phthalates are in fragrances, hairsprays, and many conventional cosmetics. The Environmental Working Group's Skin Deep database lets you look up products by name to see their chemical risk profile. It takes some time to do it the first time, but it's worth doing. Or simply reduce your use of optional beauty products. And lastly, number 5, eat more whole foods and fewer highly processed ones, especially those that have been in prolonged contact with plastic packaging. As both a physician and a human living in this plastic-infested world, none of us lives a perfectly plastic-free life. It's just not realistic, and the goal is not to create anxiety for you. The goal is to help with awareness, informed choices, and gradual reduction in plastic exposure. You now know things about plastics that most people don't, and that knowledge puts you in a better position to advocate for yourself and your family. Now, it's time for your NBA, your next best action. Just one thing you can do today to support your health, your longevity, your weight loss, or your overall wellness. I'd recommend that you pick one, just one. Maybe it's switching one canned food item to a glass version this week. Maybe it's pulling out a glass container for tomorrow's lunch instead of plastic. Maybe it's transferring your food into a glass container before microwaving it. Whatever you choose for your NBA, you've got this. Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like more support during your smart weight loss journey, check out our group coaching program at smartweightlosscoaching.com. Until next time, stay well and stay smart.